My name's Mackenzie, and I started a GoFundMe for the adoptive mother of a nonverbal autistic child. The mother had lost her job because she wasn't able to find adequate care for this autistic child. So she really needed some help with living expenses, paying some back bills. So I launched a GoFundMe to help support them during this crisis. And we raised about $10,000 within just a couple of months. I think that the surprising thing was by telling a clear story and just really being very clear about what we needed, we had some really generous donations from people who were really moved by the situation that this family was struggling with.
GoFundMe is the world's #1 fundraising platform trusted by over 200 million people. Start your GoFundMe today at GoFundMe.com. That's GoFundMe.com. GoFundMe.com. This podcast is supported by GoFundMe.
If you work in university maintenance, Grainger considers you an MVP because your playbook ensures your arena is always ready for tip-off. And Grainger is your trusted partner, offering the products you need all in one place, from HVAC and plumbing supplies to lighting and more, and all delivered with plenty of time left on the clock, so your team always gets the win. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, visit Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Looking back on it, when we were making Fear of a Black Planet, hell yeah, we knew we was making something that wasn't done. Back then, we definitely knew what was not being done. So we said, we're going to take this road, and this road's going to take us somewhere. We know it's going to take us somewhere. There's no traffic on this road anyway.
Well, welcome to the Terrordome.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. Check this out. On this podcast, we're going to take it back. We're going all the way back to April 10th, 1990. On that day, the group Public Enemy released their third album. That album was called Fear of a Black Planet. We're going to talk about it as it celebrates its 30-year anniversary. So, sit tight, we'll drop the music, and then we'll get the podcast jumping. Let's get it.
Where is Public Enemy?
What's the deal? What's your latest hit, brother?
Fear of a Black Planet.
An outrage is a rap music group called Public Enemy. But these days, America is on a hair trigger, and Public Enemy is taking some incoming fire of its own. It is music that is becoming more and more popular, so you should decide for yourself. Is this art or dangerous propaganda?
And just like that, we are back. As I mentioned in the intro, we are taking it back to 1990, April 10th, 1990. On that day, Public Enemy dropped Fear of a Black Planet. It's really crazy just thinking about this album in that context, because I guess the first thing that it lets me know as I talk about the 30-year anniversary of that album, I'm getting old. I mean, if you were around for this album, if you were around for the release of it and when it actually came out, yeah, you probably share the same sentiment. We're really, really getting old, right? But nonetheless, man, this was it's bugged out to think about it, because I remember how and what music looked and sounded like at that particular time. And to be honest, I was so excited to get this album. As I mentioned, Public Enemy, this was their third album that they had released. The first album, Yo Bum Rush the Show, phenomenal album. Some, hold it in high regard and then almost give it that C word. I don't, but I think it's right. It might be a step below. Their second album, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, which dropped in 1988, the greatest year in hip hop. It's a classic. And so Public Enemy, honestly, were 2 for 2 in my book. And then we roll up on this album, Fear of a Black Planet, in 1990. This album was recorded from June of 1989 to February of 1990. When this album dropped, I want to say I was a junior in high school. So my appreciation for this album is extremely deep, and I'll touch on that as well. But this was a very pivotal point for Public Enemy because honestly, they blew the doors off of everything with It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. That is, for me, just on a personal note, one of my favorite hip hop albums, period. It's one of my favorite albums of any genre. And obviously there was a lot of critical and commercial success, and critics loved it and the streets loved it. And it was everywhere. But you know how it goes. When you have the kind of success that they had, people want to, they want to know, can you do it again? Can you, repeat what it was that made you the success that, you became? So this album had a lot leading up to it. I mean, Public Enemy was riding the strength of, like I said, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. They also weren't without controversy. As many of you know, one of the members of the group, Professor Griff, I want to say Professor Griff in 1989 he was interviewed, and he made some anti-Semitic remarks in an interview with the Washington Times. He said that the Jews were, quote, the majority of the wickedness in the world. And of course, there was a lot of media scrutiny and, a lot of public backlash. And of course, this is before social media. So it's just not, it wasn't something that was just going to blow over. And ultimately, Public Enemy had to make a decision. And, Chuck D, the leader of Public Enemy, decided to part ways with Professor Griff. But he later, rejoined the group and, apologized or whatever like that. So it was a lot of stuff going on, leading up to this album. And, there was a lot of stuff going on in hip hop. And honestly, hip hop had, or rap, if you will, was making the change from, these simplistic lyrics to, for a lot of people, especially young, impressionable minds like myself, they were introducing certain forms of Afrocentrism, and, introducing us to political figures, the Marcus Garveys, the Assata Shakurs, the political figures that we would, come to be recognized. People like Minister Louis Farrakhan from the Nation of Islam. So when you had all of those things and the backdrop of, social and political things that were happening through the country and, really in the world, to be honest, that was in a lot of ways the backdrop of the creation of this album. So you had so many social things going. So you knew that Public Enemy was going to speak on so many things that was happening in society and particularly in the black community. So we had all of that going. And again, they're coming off the the classic album. So it's like, OK, what is PE going to do? And I mean, I shouldn't have to tell you, but the members of the group, Public Enemy, was obviously Chuck D, Flavor Flav, Terminator X, and the S1Ws, and as well as Professor Griff. So I think really looking back on it, I just as a fan, we were anticipating something dope, but you really don't know how an album's going to sound based on, what you had the last time. And we knew that, Public Enemy's work with the Bomb Squad was going to be critical. And I'll be honest, this album didn't disappoint at all. The first time I heard it, I was just like blown away because, I was one of the few people that I had a certain level of expectation. Like, I didn't say, oh man, this is going to be a classic. I didn't say that at all, but I just knew based on what they gave us from Yo Bum Rush the Show to It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, I didn't think that they were going to, slip and fall off at all. One of the first things that stands out about this album, obviously, is the production. This album was produced by the world famous Bomb Squad. And the Bomb Squad, for my money's worth, has never disappointed. The Bomb Squad consists of Keith Shockley, Eric Sadler, and Hank Shockley. And so, I just knew that they weren't gonna like half step. And when you listen to this album, sonically, the production is, it's really crazy. What they did was a lot of stuff was experimental, but it was a lot of different type of vibes that were fused together. You had a little bit of rock and roll. You had a little bit of, just that raw hip hop. But then you had these futuristic sounds that really meshed with Chuck D's voice. And I think when you add all of that together and you add Chuck D's voice, which really isn't talked about a lot. I mean, like, people will always talk about their top or greatest MCs of all time. And Chuck's name rarely gets mentioned, but his voice, I always say his voice is the sound of hip hop. And like, you would want, if you were an MC, you wanted to sound like Chuck D, because his voice was just so, I guess the best way I can describe his voice was piercing through all of the beats. And they didn't disappoint, man. They, from every track, and I'll get into the track listing and breaking the tracks down, but Fear of a Black Planet was, conceived in what we call the golden era of hip hop. And so it didn't, first and foremost, Public Enemy they don't look like anybody else. Right. And then also the sound of music doesn't sound like anything else. Like, there's a distinction between a Public Enemy record and, a Heavy D record or KRS-One record. And they were trailblazers. They really were. And, this album doesn't disappoint from a production side. I think when you listen to what it is that Chuck D's rhyming about, the subject matter, whether it be 911 is a joke, where they're poking fun and bringing awareness to the emergency system, response systems that we had in this country, where people were literally dying, waiting on 911 to come to neighborhoods to help out people who were sick or wounded. From that to Welcome to the Terrordome, which is one of the hardest hip hop songs that you'll ever hear. The production was crazy, man. Like, they blended a lot of different things. And I don't think the Bomb Squad, when you talk about, hip hop producers, real heads know, but I don't think they get the love that they probably should get when you mention their work. But this album sonically was incredible. It's not as good sonically, in my opinion, as It Takes a Nation of Millions, and that's no slouch, because if you say that that's a classic and this isn't far from it, then I think production wise you still have done very well. And this album was incredible sonically. It's not something that I think even listening to it back in 1990, I don't think we really understood or appreciated some of the sounds that we were hearing. But, once again, an incredible album. This album, as I mentioned a little earlier, was well received, not only from the streets, but from critics as well. It was an album, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, this album went platinum, maybe double platinum, ultimately. But, it was an album that was well received. And to be honest, Public Enemy, they're not a group that is looking for album sales. But it was a commercial success, and they did it in a time where, you're trying to get across a message or messages, and you're not necessarily looking for the charts, but the charts are picking you up and the streets is loving you. And that's a very delicate balance to have. And I thought that this album was very critical and did just that. But yeah, it was well received. There were some hip hop heads that, wanted to compare it to It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. Honestly, I don't think that you can compare the two, because Public Enemy was in two different places when they made that album. This album was actually nominated for a Grammy for Best Rap Duo or Group in 1991. So even with all of that, it wasn't, they didn't fall off. I'll put it like that. They didn't fall off at all, but this was a very, very great album. And honestly, it's an album even to this day that I don't get tired of hearing. Ironically enough, when I listen to It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, I always listen to Fear of a Black Planet right behind it, because I think they kind of go together. Where It Takes a Nation ends, that's where Fear of a Planet picks up. But yeah, it was a phenomenal album, and it's one album I always encourage people to, if you haven't heard it before or you haven't listened to it in a while, sit down and listen to it and vibe to it. It's not something that's, that you need to just bang in your car or your or in your stereo or whatever when you're working out. It is definitely something that is thought provoking. It is definitely something that will, at least for us at the particular time, again, I was a junior in high school, so it helped raise the, Black consciousness. And for a young person like myself, it talked about different subject matters to the, from everything from the Bush administration to apartheid in South Africa. And what it did was it really opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. I mean, I grew up, most of you know, I grew up in South Carolina, so I wasn't necessarily privy to, while I knew a lot and didn't have, obviously, the internet, what I read and what it did was listening to this music made me want to learn more. I didn't know that much about, Farrakhan. I didn't know much about the 5% Nation or anything like that. And, I think this album was very critical for young people, not necessarily to convert people, but just to expose them to things that we necessarily didn't think about at the time. So for that, I definitely will always salute Chuck D, Public Enemy, the Bomb Squad, and everybody associated with this album. I tell you what, let's take a quick commercial break. We'll hear from Chuck D, and on the other side, we'll break down this album, break down the tracks, and I'll tell you if it is a classic or not. Sit tight. We'll be back in just a second.
It Takes a Nation was our nation record. Fear of a Black Planet was our world record. And what surprises me even to this day is when people come around and say, you know what, Fear of a Black Planet touched me and kind of dragged me into Nations, but really it touched me. It touched me in a different way. Nations, I wanted to, fight and kick some ass. But Fear just made me actually just sit for a second and be humble to the power of the universe, and then, kind of focus my attention on defense. Welcome to Terrordome is my favorite song only because of it dealt with issue of a particular period that was very personal to me. But, you know, the most important record that Public Enemy has done and continues to use it as a closer, Fight the Power. Fight the Power! Spike Lee put that song in the movie 8 times. It meant a lot of people, you know, a lot of things to a lot of people. And it was written to be an anthem, and it was written at a particular time that needed an anthem, not just in the movie, but just in the time of the people.
And just like that, we are back. Once again, it's your boy 12 Kyle. This is the 12 Kyle podcast, and we're taking it back. We're talking about the 30-year anniversary of Fear of a Black Planet by Public Enemy. As I mentioned in the beginning, man, it's hard to believe that this album is actually 30 years old. But as I mentioned before the break, I was going to come back and talk about the tracks. So let's get to it. This album is, I think the running time is a little more than an hour, like an hour and 3 minutes. And there's 20 tracks, including interludes. Honestly, they probably could have shortened it up. That's just me. But I don't disapprove of the tracks that they have. Looking back on it, they probably could have cut out a track or two here or there, but everything is properly placed, so I get it. I'm just saying this, you know, now, but you know, when the album dropped in 1990, I was here for it. So don't mind me. The album starts off with track 1, Contract on the World Love Jam. More of an interlude than anything else. But it's really a track that actually sets the tone and sets the stage for what is to come. Then we get into track 2. Brother's Gonna Work It Out. Man. This song, when you hear that riff, that guitar riff from Prince's When Doves Cry, I think. Yeah, it's from When Doves Cry. That let me know right there that they weren't playing, right? The Bomb Squad wasn't playing. Chuck D wasn't playing. I remember they shot a video for this. They shot the video, I want to say, was that video shot in, I think it was shot on a beach. It might have been Atlantic City, I think. Anywhere, there was someplace where there was a recent uprising at the time of the video. But whatever beach, I don't know, it was some beach in New Jersey or whatever. And so they decided to shoot it there. But the video was really, really dope. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. But just the theme, Brother's Gonna Work It Out. It was just talking about, you know, us uniting and just fighting against the enemy. And Chuck D's incredible, man. I mean, his voice, like I told you earlier, his voice is just cuts through these tracks. But I mean, this is a wild ass. It's like you got a sample from Prince, you got a sample from George Clinton, and he just crushes it. I mean, like, this is one of my favorite tracks on the album, man. Brother's Gonna Work It Out. So I just remember, and it's interesting because, like, when I listen to this album, when I hear Brother's Gonna Work It Out, I always go back to the first time that I heard it. And I just remember listening. I bought the tape back in 1990. And I remember sitting there like, what the hell is this? Like, and I didn't say what the hell is this in a derogatory manner. I mean, like, I wasn't, you don't hear a guitar riff and that banging beat and, you know, Chuck's voice, and you're like, okay, this ain't It Takes a Nation to Millions to Hold Us Back. Like, this is something totally different, and it's out of here, and it's crazy, and it sounds so dope, right? So we go from that track to track 3. 911 is a joke. This is Flavor's joint, man. For you, if you're familiar with Public Enemy, Chuck does most of the rhyming. Flavor's the hype man, but every now and then, you know, on an album, they'll give Flavor a song or two and let him rock with it. And this was his joint. 911 is a joke. And as I mentioned before the break, this song basically talked about, the emergency system. And at the time that they were recording this was a huge issue in a lot of inner cities, particularly in black communities, where people were, becoming ill and needed, they would call 911, and the emergency people would just take their own sweet time, particularly if you lived in the hood. I mean, so imagine someone having a heart attack and you call 911 and you saying, okay, well, hey, I need somebody to come get, John. He's had a heart attack and I'm on this street, blah, blah, blah. And I'm on 201 Main Street. And they're like, okay, well, you're on 211 Main Street. And they know automatically that that's the projects. And they just take their own sweet time in the hospital where it probably should take them, 5-6 minutes to get there, is taking them 20, maybe 30 minutes to get there. And there were quite a few cases in, I know, New York City at the time, where people died because the emergency dispatcher, for whatever reason, did not get an ambulance to them, or an ambulance didn't get there quick enough. And the person died either on the way to the hospital. Some died on the spot, and it was, and so that was very, very tough. And I mean, you have to keep in the mind of the context of this song, because at the time, crack was everywhere, right? We were in the middle of the crack epidemic. So, and people don't talk about it, but crack spread like wildfire through, the inner cities and particularly in the black community. And so, then you had these wars on the street with, gangs and people, fighting over turf and everything like that. So, we needed our emergency responses to be quick. And, 911 was a joke. And, Flav, very eloquently, even in all his antics, he really delivered a serious message about the ineffectiveness of the 911 emergency phone calls. So that was really, really a dope track. Then we moved to track 4, Incident at 66.6 FM. This is a radio station that they went to, and you actually heard people calling in mad at Public Enemy. Right. So you had that kind of stuff going on. And so I remember hearing it for the first time. And the first time I heard it, I was like, this can't be real. But it really did happen. And I'm like, that's from a real live show. So that was crazy in and of itself. So my mind is, I'm trying to wrap myself around that interlude. And it's an interlude because it's only 1 minute, 37 seconds. Then we move into track 5. Welcome to the Terrordome. Hands down, my favorite track on the album. Man, this is one of the hardest hip hop songs, in my opinion, ever. Like when that beat comes on, you just know, like it's everything. What Chuck was rapping about, that's really where we were. You felt like you were in I guess the best way I can describe it, like it sounds like you're in a war, and that's what it was. It's like we were in a war at that particular time. Not a war as far as fighting the enemy, but fighting ourselves and fighting everything around us, and also trying to fight off the enemy, whatever we deem the enemy to be. Phenomenal track. Then we moved to track 6, Meet the G That Kill Me. It's an interlude. It's only 44 seconds, but they are talking about, having AIDS and it being spread through, intravenously, and then, having sex with someone and they are HIV positive, because at that time, we didn't really differentiate between HIV and AIDS. It was just, it was, if you had HIV, you were going to die. If you had AIDS, you were going to die. And there was no such thing in our mind as living life for any particular amount of time if you had that disease. So very, very integral interlude. Then we moved to track 7, Polly Want a Cracker. Man, this one was very controversial, but very, very interesting at the same time. This one dealt with interracial relationships. It also dealt with, you hear back and forth, between a man and a woman talking about, what was big at that particular time was when we would talk about, selling out. And, I've heard Chuck D talk about it where, the song was made to kind of put up a mirror for a lot of people at the time. Not so much as, black men who decided to date outside of their race, but for black men who would purposely say, like, I'm not into black women, like that type of thing. So that one drew the ire of a lot of people. But even in that little clip that you hear, you also hear, what we were taught in school about, what considers, what makes someone black. If you had a drop of black blood, then you were considered to be black. Doesn't matter how light your skin was. And that also dealt with the 3/5, concept and everything like that. So it's very, very, even in this song, it's very, very historical. Then we move to track 8, Anti-Nigger Machine. Interestingly enough, they only rap for about a minute and a half on this. But it's still another dope track as well. Then we go to the posse cut, if you will, track 9, Burn Hollywood Burn, featuring Big Daddy Kane and Ice Cube. Man, I love this joint, man. Another favorite track of mine. It was dope, man, just to see Kane and Ice Cube on a Bomb Squad joint with Chuck D, and of course you got Flavor on there as well. I think, and this song is what's criminal about this song. The song is only 2 minutes and 47 seconds. It really should have been a lot longer than that. But they did a video for it and everything, and they just talked about how the roles in Hollywood, really was. We didn't like it. We were getting these roles as maids and servants and things of that nature, and we weren't getting roles like the roles that Spike Lee was doing in his movies and things of that nature. And what we wanted, what they were asking for, was just a piece of the pie. Equal representation. We don't want to be, always be the criminal on a TV show or something like that, or the bad guy. We want to be the good guys. And when I say we, I'm speaking as black people. So really, for them to touch on, the stereotypes and typecasting in Hollywood was very, very key. So Burn Hollywood Burn definitely is one of my favorite joints. The next joint was Power to the People. Power to the People kind of reminds me of like of a funked up church song, funked up gospel song. Another banger. And, it's just a rallying cry. Power to the people, bringing people together, uniting them together for the common cause and pushing them forward. Then we move to track 11, Who Stole the Soul. One of the things that I always found interesting about this track is that they talk about how soul music was, stolen. Taken. It was the acts like James Brown and people in the 60s, the music was stolen. Their music was stolen from them, and they really never got the credit that they should have from people like that to, Elvis. And we already know how Public Enemy feels about Elvis. But that album, that song was very critical because what it did was, for someone like me, it talked about some soul singers like Wilson Pickett, who I had heard of them and I may have heard their music, but really wasn't familiar with them. And what it did was it made me research their music and research who they were and what they were about and what they sang about. So that was very key, but just talked about how, stuff gets stolen from us, and we didn't get the credit for it. And I thought that was a very, very, very bold move by Chuck D at the time. Next track, Fear of a Black Planet, the title track. Dope track. Another banger. This one, again, it's the title track. It's perfectly placed on the album. Chuck doesn't, he's not going to disappoint you on any track, but he came with some dope rhymes on this one. And I think I think what I learned over a period of time was when you try to put yourself in their shoes as far as when they were creating this album, you have to also align yourself with some of the things that was happening in society. So for this song to be titled that and for the album to be titled that, I thought it was a brilliant move by Public Enemy. I mean, what else would you expect from a group called Public Enemy? Fear of a Black Planet. Next track is Revolutionary Generation. This one is another solid joint. The thing that always impressed me about this song was that this was just a continuation of the song that came before it. And I think what they did was, and I don't know how this was sequenced, but these are really, really strong tracks that I think, really could stand alone, but they mesh very well with the whole concept of the album. Then we get the track 14, Can't Do Nothing For You Man. Another Flavor Flav joint. This one was on, I want to say, the House Party soundtrack. I Can't Do Nothing For You Man. You jumped out of jelly into the jam. Typical Flavor Flav, man. Party joint. I love the song. They probably could have left it off, but I'm not mad that they put it there. But I think this probably where, if it were me, I probably would have ended the album here. And it's no knock on the rest of the tracks that come behind it, but I think they probably could have ended it here with the exception of maybe one song, and that would have been straight. But the subsequent songs, I think, for lack of a better term, there's a slight fall off in the songs, but still doesn't take away from the album. It's still an incredible album. The next joint is more of an interlude. Reggie Jacks, Chuck D rhyming over a very, very slowed down, sound like a chopped and screwed beat, but he still gets it off. Then we go to track 16, Leave This Off Your Fucking Charts. This is the only track that was not produced by the Bomb Squad. This was produced by Norman Rogers. It was decent, very solid track. Then we go to track 17, B-side Wins Again. I always like this one because it called B-side. And for those of you who were around, you remember A-side and B-side. Well, obviously on the tape, this was the B-side. Very futuristic sound. I like the way Chuck and Flav are rhyming on this. I just wish, like I said, they probably could have left it off. I don't think it's a filler track, but it doesn't hit the way the other tracks are. It doesn't hit the way the other tracks do, but it's still a very, very good song. Same for the next track, War at 33 1/3. Very, very solid. Very solid track. Then track 19, Final Countdown of the Collision Between Us and the Damned. That was an interlude. It's only like 48 seconds. And then the final track, track 20, Fight the Power. Like I said earlier, they probably could have got to track 14, Can't Do Nothing For You Man, and then Fight the Power. I would have ended it there. I would have ended it with Fight the Power. Fight the Power is the anthem. It was the anthem of the Spike Lee movie, Do the Right Thing. It is one of the, it's one of the best and one of the most recognized hip hop songs in the history of hip hop. It's one of those joints, man. You can never grow tired of hearing it. And of course, they shot the video in Bed-Stuy. Tawana Brawley, Al Sharpton, all of them were in the video. But yeah, it's what can I say about Fight the Power? You know what Fight the Power is. It like I said, it's an anthem, and it's something that still bangs and still resonates with people to this day. And no matter what the struggle is, no matter what the movement is, Fight the Power will always be a song that people will play as a rallying cry. Overall, like I said, it's 63 minutes of pure unadulterated funk, pure unadulterated hip hop, pure unadulterated fused futuristic music. This album, if I had to give it a mic, this is a 4.5 mic album. It's not a 5 because, again, I think the back half of the B side isn't as strong as the A side. If you said 4 mics, okay, cool, no problem. You get no argument for me. If you said 5, I could debate with you. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I've seen some people call this a classic. It's just a little bit short of a classic to me, but a very important album because if for nothing else, you have to look at the themes and what during the time was going on and what Flavor Flav and Chuck were actually rapping about. I think that in and of itself makes it an album that can stand alone. It's often compared to It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, and rightfully so because it came after it. But this is a great album. This is an album I think that it's been 30 years. You listen to it, it does not sound dated at all. You can still pick up and understand what it is that Chuck's rhyming about and why it was dope then, and it's still dope to this day. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Thank you for checking out this latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm your boy 12 Kyle. We'll catch you next time. 5Gs.
If you work in university maintenance, Grainger considers you an MVP because your playbook ensures your arena is always ready for tip-off. And Grainger is your trusted partner, offering the products you need all in one place, from HVAC and plumbing supplies to lighting and more. And all delivered with plenty of time left on the clock, so your team always gets the win. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, visit Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is the story of the one. As a procurement manager for a hospital system, she keeps every facility in her network stocked and ready. That's why she counts on Grainger to be her single source for thousands of products, from disinfectants to lighting, air filters, and more. And with fast, dependable delivery, Grainger helps her keep every facility stocked, safe, and running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.